5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Привет!
Добрый день, товарищи! Добро пожаловать на подкаст!
Новый день, новый язык.
Uh,
Let that sink in. We really just fucking prepared for that, dude.
New language, new day. Or the other
It's
way around.
actually the other way around. Nový
Yeah.
den is new day, and then nový jazyk is new language. But we did just spend like half an hour literally setting this up.
I don't know if they really got what we did there, but that's fine.
I mean, I assume our listeners aren't literally the dumbest people alive, so I'm pretty confident they got the joke. It was a bad joke, but it was definitely not a cheap joke. It took a lot of time to make this happen.
Oh yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of the most...
Tripsits.
Yeah, I was trying to find my adjective, dude. How do you say cameno in English?
Burnt.
Yes, okay, sure. The most burnt podcast out there, because
Should we-
apparently that makes sense.
I've had this discussion before, and apparently this thing doesn't really exist in foreign languages, like saying something is burnt. So should we really elaborate?
Burnout exists as a concept, and it's actually a concept I'll want to discuss later on today.
Oh, fair, okay. So we should do it then.
So we can maybe find the proper adjective when the time comes.
Mhm.
Today our topic is language, and it's part 2. Today we'll be talking about the more human aspects of language. Do you want to give a recap of what happened yesterday on the podcast?
Yeah, basically we got into, like, we dipped our feet on a nerdy field of computational linguistics.
Okay, guys, I think y'all get like what kind of stuff he watches at night. just
Alan
going
Turing.
off. just going off. He just going off what he said. He used the word feet and nerdy in the same sentence.
Yeah, I did. So
Okay.
yeah, basically we sort of laid out what are the few subfields of language and how it works, and now we're gonna do what you've been nerdy about.
Yeah, I've been nerdy about like the boring shit. Because yesterday we talked about like whether programming languages are languages and shit. But today it's all about like personality and culture and all those like fuzzy, nice words. But before we get into that, as always, my dude, we have sponsors. Once again, we have sold out to the corporate machine, and we have received certain deposits which we will now exchange for some shoutouts. So our first sponsor today is couples therapy. Has suppressing the doubts about your relationship been hard lately? Are you constantly discovering new ways to fuck up your kids? Couples therapy might be for you.
Please tell me this doesn't come from a personal story.
I'm afraid it does, and I'm afraid I've got to lay some things out for you, Dimitris.
Oh no. Go ahead.
I'm gonna be honest with you. When this thing began, I thought we were gonna be perfect for each other. I thought our chemistry would be, the driver for this podcast. I thought that every day I'd be looking forward to the podcast, which I still am. And it's just that I've sort of lost that initial spark that made me want to do this podcast with you. Don't worry, it's not you, it's me. It's just that I have commitment issues. I can't just commit to one podcast forever because I'm not sure. It's permanent. Permanent is a big word, and
you don't want to fuck with time.
I'm scared of big words. Is what I'm trying to say here. So I've been thinking maybe it's time to take a podcast break. I've been thinking maybe the reason for this tension and insecurity in how I view our relationship has been coming from a place of tiredness and fear. And I've been thinking that maybe we should let, the 7 episodes we've been making for the past 7 days just sit there and accumulate views while we chill for like 3 days and then come back with a whole new set of episodes.
Who's been poking with your heart?
No one. I swear the e-thoughts on Instagram and TikTok have not been getting to me lately.
Oh, that's good.
It's just honestly, I've been wanting to have this conversation, and I'd prefer to do it on the podcast because we keep it 100.
Oh wait, is this legit? I thought we were.
Yeah, this
Oh,
is a legit conversation.
okay, yeah, fair.
Yeah, I've just been thinking, we don't need to do this as often as we do. Like obviously, there's not a lot of people that will actually watch these on the daily, you know.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, because what we give the people, they can't handle the truth so often, right?
Especially the cartels.
Yeah, and like I'm thinking, like if we do it like once every 2 days, and then maybe every 10 or so we take a small break, then the cartel might ease up. Maybe they won't have a problem with us delivering the tea to the doorstep of millions potentially of listeners once we, of course, blow up in 2 years.
I think we're gonna blow up sooner.
Yeah, are you ready for the fame?
Well, I've already been exposed to it, to be frank.
Oh yeah, of course, with your YouTube channel with how many subscribers?
1,000. And
Honestly, next time you touch me, I'm not taking a shower again.
oh,
Yeah, so I'm glad we had this conversation, dude. This needed to happen, and I'm glad I can be open with you, especially through a
you're
joke about
making
couples
this
therapy.
way more like sound way more serious than it is. Like
Well,
I actually have like homework to do, and I've been skipping it. Not because of the podcast, because I've been watching movies and then doing the podcast.
yeah, I've been procrastinating as well, but I'm just saying, the podcast is a big deal, and I don't want to half-ass it. I want to spend quality time working on each episode, and to do that, taking into account my issues with procrastination, I think it'd be best if we didn't do it every day.
Yeah.
But of course, this is open to reevaluation. That's why we have couples therapy as a sponsor. Uh, that being said, time to move on to our second sponsor.
Who
Our
is?
second sponsor today is 10-minute email.
What the
Are
fuck is
there
that?
certain services that have recently become free but require an account to use? 10-minute mail. Now you can enjoy premium as much as you want without the commitment. My friend,
Oh,
in this time of dire circumstance, in this time when people are dying by every minute, when the elderly won't leave their homes because they fear a small virus only 20 nanometers wide, in this time when the Dow is reaching the bottom of like the graphs, in this time when $3 trillion are being injected into the US economy, only one company stands above them all and offers its services for free worldwide for a month.
and that is
I mean, I don't know. I'm not gonna say anything explicit. I don't want to get fucking copyright striked by Aria on Twitter.
yeah. I think it it has to do something with Habs. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure. But I will point out that whoever runs their Twitter is like really good at running Twitters, dude. Honestly, top notch. The memes are always on point, and they're not even explicit. That's the
They're
best
not.
part. No, they're not.
Oh. That's
I
perfect.
mean, of course they're all tagged as explicit, but nothing. There's nothing like weird on there. It's just all like memes.
Oh,
Like
I'll check them
actually
out.
quite wholesome. Yeah, you should after you follow me on Twitter because that's where I drop the realty because the cartels can't really throttle my Twitter speed.
Hmm.
Okay, so now that we've been over our sponsors and we've made the first 10 minutes of this episode very fucking boring, let's get into something that's even more boring but very interesting to me. And because I'm half of this podcast, I get to expand on this shit.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's go. Let's hear it.
so get ready to be exposed to welcome. First of all, welcome to my TED Talk. And I'm not kidding. Actually, a big chunk of what I'm about to spill was actually this speech I drafted for like a forensics competition, which I mean, I was pretty successful, I'd say. I got the finals. Didn't win, but I was generally happy.
That's not the purpose.
Yeah, dude, I got a participation trophy. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's like doing the IB nowadays.
Good one. Okay. So we talked about tech yesterday. Let's broaden it up a bit today with language and talk about the people that actually use language, which are
Humans.
humans. Did you hear my drum roll? Was it good enough?
It wasn't good enough, but I did hear it.
Okay, that works. So, first off, what are humans? No, I'm just kidding. uh, first off, I'm going to start with just this theory that I'm pretty sure everyone's aware of, or at least heard of, which can sort of ease us into a topic that can get really complex at times. But if you take the appropriate measures, like if you go slow enough, it's really not that hard.
All
And
right.
that's true with a lot of things, not just this topic. Okay, I'm going to start off with a theory that, as I said, everyone's probably heard of, and that's the theory that when you're speaking in different languages, you're expressing different personalities. Have you heard of this
Different
before?
personalities.
Yes, I'm sure you've heard of this before.
I have, but I think I've heard it in a sort of bundled up way. Probably it's sort of expressing a different culture and a different personality.
Okay, so because everything's jumbled up that way, I'm gonna go very I'm gonna express all of this very linearly. I'm gonna start with personalities, and then we can get into the like nittier, like grittier stuff and like theories and stuff, and how everything is connected with the culture and all that.
Hmm.
Okay,
So go ahead.
so picture this: it's 1964.
Yep.
You're at Berkeley. You're a professor. You've
Lucky me.
just, huh?
Lucky me.
Yeah, lucky you. You've just smoked some really bomb ganja, and you're
Mhm.
like, hey, what should I make my test subjects do today? Apparently, someone thought the best idea was to get like a bunch of people that spoke English and a bunch of people that spoke French. Uh, then give both of those groups like pictures and then make them make up 3-minute stories and just narrate what's happening in the pictures.
Am I teaching psychology? What am I
Uh,
teaching?
I'm pretty sure you are. You're
Okay,
definitely part of the department of psychology, but I'm not sure what your name is
fair enough.
because it's not important. Who cares about names? Like people on podcasts all the time, they're like, "Oh, in 1964, Professor whatever did this and that." I don't care. Who the fuck remembers the name after they're done with the episode?
Right. Go
Anyway,
on with your rant.
yeah. So basically, bunch of English people, not English people necessarily, just English speakers,
Yep.
make up 3-minute stories. French speakers also make up 3-minute stories. He's not really looking for something specific here. The professor, it's still very early in the field of combining language with psychology and all that.
So you was just trying to see what's gonna turn up.
Yeah, he very likely did just really smoke some bomb ganja and then be like, "Wow, we should really try that."
Mm,
Uh,
nice.
and I am using the word ganja on purpose because it was 1964, dude. They were toking on some good reefer, bro. Far out. Okay. Uh,
Stop trying to get us cancelled.
no, I'm not getting us canceled. I'm just talking about like substance abuse. We're here to entertain you if you're sober. We're here to entertain you if you're not. And that's why this podcast is called Tripsits. Okay, so apparently now is the time for me to end, this segment because it's been going on for far too long. Okay. Uh, so, unsurprisingly, the French stories included more dominant old people and more verbal abuse.
Okay.
And that was the
About
beginning.
pictures. That was description of a picture, right?
Yeah, it was basically, hey, you, describe what's happening here to me in 3 minutes.
All right.
And all the French were like, oh, he's like calling him a whatever. And like this old dude is being very dominating.
All
I
right.
don't know. I don't know. French people, dude, you figure it out. Uh,
Ooh. Do you have anything to say?
uh, no, I don't think I do. Are you hinting at something?
No.
Okay. I don't really have experience with French people, only people that really want to be French. But that's a
Oh,
whole
that's
different
yeah,
story.
that's really different.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go.
So, this was basically, he was a trailblazer. He was the first person to ever notice that kind of difference in sort of how people express their thoughts in different languages.
Hmm.
And the idea was, well, these people are all at Berkeley, so they shouldn't really be having that radically different thoughts, And even if they were, it's a bunch of people, so it should sort of cancel out because everyone is different, of course. So this difference between the two languages must be explained through some sort of psychological difference that the speakers experience when they're speaking, English or French.
Hmm.
So fast forward to 2006 at the University of Connecticut, also known as that one university you don't care about hearing back from.
Yep.
Uh, they got like a bunch of bilingual people that spoke both English and Spanish, and basically made them talk in both languages. Just like talk, not really doing anything specific, just I think talking about themselves.
Yep.
And then they measured the big five personality traits, which I'm not going to name all of them because honestly, some of them are like kind of hard to, grasp as well. But it
Yeah.
includes things such as whether you're an introvert or an extrovert and how open you are. And basically, the conclusion was that English speakers were generally more open and neurotic. And the way they tried to explain this was that they do this thing called self enhancement, which is basically that when you're speaking in English, you're amplifying yourself and you're sort of overreacting to whatever's happening on the inside when you're projecting that to the outside.
Mm. Um.
So
I'll. Yeah. Okay.
that's basically the hard evidence. There's not really much interpretation involved here other than what I just told you about
Do you
self-enhancement.
think, apart from the language, it might have to do with the country? So, like,
Well,
do
I
you
do
think
have
that you'd see the same result in a British, like, English speaker or an American?
I do have my own take, which I'll share in a minute. But
Hmm.
right now, I'm more interested in knowing, like, before we get into like more complex ideas, like, do you think this idea like checks out at face value? That when you're speaking in a different language, you're expressing yourself differently.
Oh yeah, sure,
Okay, so
I agree.
elaborate.
Oh, well, I can only speak of my personal experience, which is that for me at least, it's not only the language, but when we're only taking it that far, uh, I don't know. It's sort of a progression. Like I feel like when I'm speaking in Greek, I might be finding my like my base sort of type of personality, but then when I'm trying to speak in English or when I'm making that transition, it's sort of filtered in a sense. I don't know how to explain it.
So you think your true self in a way is in Greek and then everything in English passes through some sort of like
Mm, I,
filter?
I don't know. I haven't really thought about that before because a lot of the times when I'm alone, I might think in English. So like my you know many of my inner speaking is in English. So maybe that's my base self. But I feel more natural maybe when speaking in when communicating at least in Greek.
Yeah,
So
which
yeah,
makes sense. You've spoken Greek for most of your life,
yeah,
which so have I. And I'd say that I also kind of feel the difference. The problem with me is I'm not really sure what language I think in.
yeah, same.
Sometimes it helps to be like, okay, n- I'm now aware of the fact that I'm thinking in Greek or English because then I can structure my thoughts and like get to conclusions faster. But most of the time, I just think in abstract like ideas that I can't really put into language.
Yeah, so like in a notion of what you're
Yeah,
sort of.
sometimes you might even visualize things.
Yeah, sure.
So, but I do notice that oftentimes I mix. So I'm not really sure. Wait, did I just? Can you hear me
Yeah.
well?
No, you got cut for like a second.
Yeah, I think I saw that happen. Anyway, I was saying that sort of mix up languages as well. Like sometimes, without even realizing, I'll use like Greek phrases, but like translated word for word in English, and vice versa.
Yeah, I do that as well, especially when speaking to someone in English,
Yes,
and not a
but
Greek person. Like even with British folks, I've been doing it.
yeah, but it's weird because I also do it the other, like vice versa, which then makes me confused about which language I'm more comfortable with.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when we were speaking in Greek, because we we really cannot hold a proper Greek conversation us two, because we always mix up the languages. Uh,
Right, yeah, I don't think
we
we've ever
use
had.
so many verbs, and the way we structure grammar in Greek, it's in a sense it's in a it's in an English grammar with Greek words which randomly may be substituted by an English word with which we are more like
Yeah,
comfortable with.
okay, I get it. Like, obviously, I get it because you're literally describing how we talk. But I think it's a good explanation, the one you just gave. But enough
Hmm.
about us. Let's get to my take.
Yep.
Enough about me. Now let's get to what I think.
Okay, that doesn't sound selfish of you.
No, no, no. Look, basically, here's my take. I think that there's certain like standards that you feel a pressure to meet whenever you're conversing in a certain language. And those standards are derived from how languages are commonly used. And this connects to what you said about different countries, because there are different standards for an English speaker in the US and different standards in the UK.
Sure.
So you might alter how you express yourself to fit in and appear more like a native speaker. So, like, let's say you're someone who grew up somewhere in Europe and you just moved to LA, and everyone around, and you don't know English, and everyone around you basically talks like a valet girl, which is not
Oh
necessarily
no.
realistic, but like, imagine.
Yeah, that'd be a nightmare.
Then I'd probably say that the standards that are set for you in terms of how the language is used are sort of what you'll end up absorbing yourself, right? Even if you don't
Oh yeah.
necessarily, even if you're not necessarily taught a version of the language that sounds like that and works like that, you'll
Hmm.
eventually like sort of adopt like local mannerisms. And this can happen like on a wider scale than just like LA and Valley girls. This can happen on a scale of like, I don't know, Americans in general being more open and extroverted and loud.
Yeah, my personal take on this is that this effect sort of happened more intensely in my like earlier days when I was younger and I wasn't so uh confident in my English or whatever. Whenever I travel abroad, and not necessarily like an English speaking country, but of course that's the only language I speak and I could communicate with others, I sort of found that I absorbed the way people spoke, for example, in Italy or in France. And
Hmm.
that was not to a great extent, but it was sort of embedded permanently in my English. Uh,
Okay.
So it also gave a flavor to my accent, which was sort of like diminished a few months later. But then my thinking sort of reflected that country's thinking in English, which is really interesting.
Wow. How would you describe the thinking itself? Like, how can you identify that as a difference?
I don't know if yeah, I might have phrased it wrong. I don't know if it was a thinking, but it was sort of their behavior in this language. Because whenever a non this is just my theory. I don't have anything to prove this. But whenever a non-native English speaker from a different country speaks in English, and they're not like any masters of it, they can just communicate with you. A lot of things are, and a lot of their ideas are expressed in a similar way they do it in their native language. So I
Well,
guess
I think the concept you're not utilizing here to explain all this, which would honestly make it all sound a lot more, reasonable and relatable, is a word that I told you we'd be discussing later on, and now it's time to discuss it now, which is culture. I think you're talking about internalizing the culture of different places.
mm, yeah,
Because culture is not just about like wine and spaghetti. It's also about expressing ideas and, judging people, which is oftentimes, things we can sort of more easily adopt when we visit other countries, right? Like
yeah,
the
definitely.
l- perhaps some of the more evident aspects of local behavior is influenced by culture.
Yeah, maybe primarily influenced.
So what I have for you is this. There's this theory that when, like, let's say bilingual people present themselves differently depending on the language they're using, it's actually because they're also switching cultures. So, for
Mm,
example, there was this study of people that were, again, bilingual speakers with English and Spanish being their two languages
yep.
that expressed, for example, a greater positivity when discussing female empowerment in Spanish, which was then connected to, a generally more empowered position for women in a lot of societies that speak Spanish.
Hmm.
Especially, the study was conducted in the US where, you know, uh, some would argue that that women are seen as more important in Latino culture than, let's say, mainstream American culture.
I cannot really argue about that. I have no idea of women's
Well,
perception in Spanish culture.
I'm not arguing about it either. I mean, I'm not trying to claim that this study was correct. I'm just laying out the claims that were made within the study, like
Right,
for
fair
their
enough.
hypothesis to make sense.
Hmm.
So basically, it's this whole different like aspect to this conversation where it's not just about the language and the standards and why you're using this language the way you are. It's about whether by switching languages, you're also sort of flicking a switch when it comes to what cultural ideas you're going off, which is both
Hmm.
your behavior, but also sort of, ideas about society, like the position of women, for example.
Have you found this to be true within you? Like, do you think that your ideas or your perception of certain issues will differ from
Well,
language
I,
to language?
I'll say this: if there's one thing I like doing a lot, especially on this podcast, it's swearing. I
Oh yeah.
love a good swear word,
Hmm.
like clusterfuck. That's a top five.
Yeah.
I- I'd say it's much easier to be a dick to someone in Greek.
Oh yeah. Oh.
And it's not just and there's a double like aspect to this. It's what I was talking to you about before with like a focus on the use of the language specifically. I find that like short bursts of bad words come more naturally in Greek. Like
Oh yeah.
it's almost lyrical the way you can chain like five or six good phrases or words
And
into.
make and there's so many combinations of them.
Yes, it's
Well,
basically like Yu-Gi-Oh, swearing in Greek.
well, the funny thing is I think the English language like significantly is like needs some change in swearing because there's a really big lack of diversity in how you can offend someone. So every time I'm at a club and someone tries to like have a fight with me, or like a security guard tries to pull me out, the
Every
only
time, does this happen often?
yeah, it's happening often. I don't know why. Like, Brits are really fucking weird at clubs. But
I mean,
anyhow,
maybe it's because they're all drunk, dude. I don't know.
yeah. But it's also like security guards. I don't know why, but they don't really
I
like
mean, you do have a history of not going,
me.
of not, of not like doing well with bouncers,
No,
especially.
actually, I'm the one who always manages them, but they really don't like me as a first sight. But anyhow, that's not the issue at matter now. Every time they want to say something which is more offensive or significant, they're just gonna say, "Oh, I'm gonna fuck you up," and it sounds so fucking funny to me because it doesn't sound significant if you've experienced the diversity and how creative Greek swearing can be. Like that, taking that to Greek would sound really stupid to say in a hyped up
Yeah,
scenario, right?
I guess just repeating that one phrase would make you appear very intoxicated, I guess, or just plain dumb.
But that's what they do, and they like seriously mean it. Like for them, it's going to 100% seriousness, but I cannot really take it seriously. So I'm like, guys, chill out. Um, I'm here. I can communicate with you. You don't have to scream at my face the same phrase 10
So,
times.
have you ever gotten beaten up though?
Never. I've always died the thing down. I don't really like to escalate shit, but I'm not the guy who's gonna walk away like crying or whatever. I'm just gonna
Okay,
calm it down.
now that my beautiful podcast partner has really affirmed their masculinity, we can
That
get
was never
into
my point, bro.
yeah, that's what they all say, honey. We can get into the second part of my experience, which is not only is there a lyrical element to short bursts of bad words in Greek, but it's also the cultural like impact of being a Greek and being raised in a city where, sort of screaming at someone because they like did something very light is very natural, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, if someone fucks up your coffee order, you can like basically chain five or six words together, no problem. But imagine if you were to do that in English, if you were to actually use seven distinct curses in a row at a coffee shop.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot more intense, I think.
If you could find them.
Yeah, if you could find them. But then again, there's this a whole other thing, which is why I also like swearing in English, It's much easier to be witty in English. I find that in
Yeah.
Greek, oftentimes it's hard to convey like a witty comment as fast as you need to for it to like be humorous.
It
In Greek,
depends. It
in
depends. I
Greek,
don't know.
basically, look, in Greek, basically, what I'm trying to say is that if you're trying to express a witty comment, providing like the context for what you're trying to say will basically take enough time where it's not funny anymore.
Mm, maybe. I don't know. Because recently, again, with my experience with talking to Brits, I don't know. They don't really get the sarcasm, especially if you're swearing.
But yeah, but like, come on. Your point here can't honestly be that English people don't get sarcasm. They basically invented the concept.
No, I mean, let me rephrase. They don't get sarcasm the same way we use it in Greek. So, like,
Yeah,
you know,
because in Greek we don't use it properly. In Greek it takes us like 5 minutes to establish it.
mm,
In English it's like you're always like one you thought away from being sarcastic.
well, I don't know.
Anyway, that's just my take. I think that culture is also very important in conjunction with, you know, linguistic differences and differences in how the common use of language is different.
Oh yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Okay, so now that we've gone over this, I think it's time to get into like the main event,
Which
which
is
which is what I've been hyping up, which is also to do with language and culture, but also to do with something you love mentioning, but something I oftentimes like prevent you from getting into because I know what will happen if you get into it, and that is time.
ooh,
My the speech I came up with one very dark day was about language and time. I'm not gonna like just read off this because honestly it's too long. I
yeah.
have no idea how I came up with the attention span to deliver it, let alone write it. Um, but basically, here are just a few interesting distinctions between languages that sort of hint at different cultural distinctions as well.
Mhm.
So, first of all, there's a difference when describing time because some languages mainly describe time using volume, while other languages describe time using density. So, apparently, these researchers found that Swedish and English speakers tend to say, like, what a long day after a long day. And then Greek and Spanish speakers tend to say, what a full day. So there's a difference between, time being something that's longer when the day is harder, or
Or
there more being more time within time, like it being more dense.
but we both say what a big day,
Who
and
the
it
fuck
refers
says what a big day?
ti μεγάλη μέρα.
I've never heard that. Also, have you ever heard of the phrase what a
What?
big day in English?
Tomorrow's gonna be a big day.
Yes, but
Yeah,
I'm referring to like
it's
after you're
referring
done
to
with the day.
significance, but also it has to do with okay, today was a big day. It was a long day or a big day, but both can be said.
Sure, but you never hear like someone saying what a full day.
Oh, sure, yeah, but I'm just saying that there is an intersection.
Sure, there always is. We're just talking about what tends to happen more statistically, dude. Honestly, I'd expect you to get it. It's literally.
Bro, I get it. I'm just trying to see your opinion on that sense, because I'm I'm just saying that.
Well, maybe if you let me finish my theory, I'll let you know of my opinion. God, your toxic masculinity is really popping off in this one, eh?
You're really trying to project my uh, theoretical insecurities, but I assure you that they're non-existent.
Yes, of course. You don't have insecurities. You're a perfect man. Okay.
No, but there's nothing wrong with my masculinity.
Honestly, I'm gonna clip that, and our intro from now on will be there's masculinity.
Alright,
I
go
swear
on.
to God, it's YouTube. It's 80% male. We'll get more views, I promise. Wait, was I cutting off? I think I cut off for a second.
I got only YouTube and promise.
Yeah, I said I'll make that our intro. And YouTube is like 80% male, so I promise we'll get more views that way.
Oh yeah, let's reassure them.
Well, we're basically gonna Jordan Peterson our way to a victory.
I don't know that reference, but I'm gonna agree blindly like Rick and Morty does.
You don't know Jordan Peterson?
No, I don't.
Wait, am I making a mistake? Is that not his name? 1 second. Oh my God, that is his name. You don't know him?
No, am I
The
supposed to?
the guy that explains the patriarchy using lobsters?
I don't know if you know that, but I haven't really delved into sex science that much, so no.
Yes, of course. The famous sex scientist Jordan Peterson.
You know what I mean.
Okay. That's enough. Honestly, we're gonna have an episode just on Jordan Peterson now that I know you don't know who he is.
All
Okay.
right.
So, and then another very I'm not gonna cover everything, but another very interesting difference is basically there's this Yale economist called Keith Chen. He said that there are certain countries whose languages are futureless, meaning that grammatically, the future is often defined in terms of the present, right?
Hmm.
So the futureless world includes countries like Norway, Germany, China, where you don't really use like the word will. Like
Mm-hmm.
someone from the UK will go to the market tomorrow, but a German is like going to be at the market tomorrow.
Hmm.
Do you get the difference there? You sort of just use present tenses more often to describe future actions.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So what his point here is that basically the futureless languages and those countries, the people there are much better at financial planning, and they tend to save more money. And generally, they tend to associate present actions with future outcomes more,
Okay.
and therefore, as a result, they're better at
Uh,
more saving behaviors.
oh. Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and saving behaviors are not just saving money. They're
Yeah, yeah.
also like
It
smoking less, using contraceptives more.
no, it's just the future bears a greater significance. Like from the way I see it, like it's it almost sounds as it's nearer. The way we use future referencing in Greek, for example, is as something that it's not really here. It's far away. It's something that doesn't affect us. And if you're referring it as in a like in a present matter, it's sort of like for me at least, and probably like the languages which use this phrasing, it's sort of as if your actions today affect your future directly.
Yeah, the psychology checks out. It's pretty intuitive, I'd say.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of time, I'd like to get into our last concept of the day,
Hmm.
which is well, look, time exists. We're all constantly moving forward in time, and at some point in time, we're going to die.
Are we?
We probably are.
Hmm. sad.
But the question, and
Or
like generally, when humans are dying, we try to prevent that from happening, right?
yeah.
I mean, unless you're over 80 in an Italian hospital right now.
You almost stole a laugh from me, but I didn't. Because it's not funny, it's just that I find the over dramatization of this fact in the media kind of
Yeah, okay,
stupid.
Queen. Um, Basically, I have a question for you. When the same happens for languages, when languages, die,
Die.
start dying at least, when we have dying languages, should we let them die?
No.
Okay, wait. There's a lot behind this. First of
No, there
all,
isn't.
I'm getting PTSD right now because this is one of the harder things to debate without like the background knowledge. So whenever I see this topic, I cringe.
Mhm.
So basically, here's the disagreement. There are languages that, for a lot of reasons, basically, which are very complex, but can basically be, boiled down to white people being a fucking mess. Uh, a lot of languages are, losing out on active speakers because, they're getting old and dying.
Yeah.
A lot of like their kids and stuff and their families and their descendants are not really learning the languages, or not to a level where they can be considered active speakers.
All right.
And so the languages are basically getting to a point where no one uses them anymore. And that's what we call a language dying. Now, a language dying doesn't necessarily mean we forget about it, or we, somehow lose our understanding of how it works.
Okay.
So it's basically about whether the government should encourage people to learn these languages that might be dying, or whether we should just let them die and like still study them, but not in a sense where we're, you know, encouraging people to actually use them and learn them.
Mm. But can you really have a complete knowledge of a language without actually being able to speak and communicate with it? Like,
I mean,
I don't know if you explain German grammar to me and how the German language works to me, I won't be able to fully grasp what it does and how it works. I'm just gonna have a brief overview and a very poor idea of how it actually works without me actually
dude,
being able to speak it.
what I was trying to convey is that just because a language is dead does not mean we forget how it works. Like Latin. Latin is a dead language, but I can sit down and explain like grammar in Latin and verb types in Latin and like tenses in Latin to you. And eventually you'll become a Latin speaker,
Mm,
right?
maybe I don't know.
So let me give you an example of what like encouraging a language to stay alive looks like, because
Okay.
it might be sort of hard to grasp this idea.
Yeah, it is.
Because like, it's a language. How do you encourage people to learn a language, keep it alive? So there was in Canada where, they've been having issues with the First Nations, the Indigenous Canadians.
Hmm.
And when I say they've been having issues with, I mean the First Nations people have been having issues with the Canadians for so long. um, Basically, look, the government and specifically the service designed to sort of preserve First Nations culture started funding movies that are in First Nations languages. And
Oh, okay.
specifically, I heard about this because apparently a really good action film came out that was entirely in a First Nations language.
Yeah. Okay. Go on.
So the idea was, if I can enjoy this action film on a whole different level. And when I'm talking action film, I'm not talking just like, oh, it's Jason Statham and guns and, motorbikes, but also guns and also like cars and stuff. Oh, and by the way, it's all in this First Nations language. No, I'm talking about a proper action film that's sort of infused with the culture with that behind the language as well. So
Yeah.
like a whole complete package where you'll get a better understanding if you speak the language. So it's
Okay.
sort of an
But
incentive for people to learn the language.
to you, it'd be like watching a French movie because you
Yeah, but
know.
like I'm not the main target audience. The
Okay.
main target audience is probably people that, might know part of the language. Like it's basically if the Greek government made movies in ancient Greek, but it's not the same thing because ancient Greek is already dead. Imagine if the Greek government had tried to prevent us from moving from like ye old Greek to the
Well,
new.
it's like referring to Shakespeare's age of English. Like
Yeah,
that's
imagine if the
sort of
if
a natural evolution of the language.
yes, I mean we can't find the perfect analogy, but
Mhm.
I'd say getting pretty close would be uh looking at Israel with Yiddish and Hebrew,
Okay.
and how basically Hebrew is sort of a new constructed language that shares a lot of roots with Yiddish. But also interesting would be the example of Wales, where they've basically managed to revive their language by forcing everyone to learn it at school.
Okay.
Like at some point, their language was literally dying out, and they pumped so much money into getting every kid to learn it.
That's crazy.
So, like, okay, now I've laid out the examples. Tell me what you think about it. Does a language's value come from utility? Is there a point to keeping it alive just to keep it alive? What do you think?
Let me think. Um, I don't know. If I make that argument, essentially there is no reason to keep to keep any language apart from one. Like if we only think about it in a utility manner, then we should all stop speaking whatever we do right now and start speaking like English or Chinese or something, because that'd be the most efficient way to communicate around the
I mean,
world.
I'd say that there's probably some utility to us not all speaking in English, right?
Mm,
First of
yeah,
all,
maybe.
it would probably be very hard to get everyone to switch to English right now, specifically English as well. That would be a very arbitrary choice. I'd say, maybe Chinese makes more sense.
Yeah, that's why I didn't say necessarily English. But I don't know. I don't know. I think it depends on a case by case evaluation, because a few languages really have a cultural, uh, you know, influence to our world. No, no matter what language we're speaking, if we're gonna get some of the philosophy which is developed in that language, or if we're gonna get some of the, you know, cultural aspects of the people that speak it, and we can embed it in a positive way in our culture, then I think that's a reason why you should keep a language. But it really depends on what studies of that language have shown us.
Well,
Uh,
I guess you could make the point that maintaining the language alive is integral in sort of continuing the cultural progression of a certain like nation.
yeah, because I've heard that we're always going back to indigenous tribes in the Amazon, and we're sort of analyzing how their culture works to sort of see and cross check things that we do in our culture and see if they're agreeing or disagreeing.
Well, yeah, I think it's generally. a good message to extract from today's conversation that no matter how insignificant certain, cultures or languages might seem, there's always value to the things that society has, chosen to store in the form of culture, whether that is ideas or mentalities or behaviors.
Yeah, sure.
And that, like, all cultures, especially very different cultures, have things to offer to people that are looking to, learn and examine them with an open mind.
Uh, yeah, I think that's a good message.
Do you approve of that message?
My name is Dimitris, and I approve your message.
Thank you. So now that we've wrapped this whole thing up, it's time for the daily, most important question, and that is, how was your day?
Mm, my day was good. I woke up and I went for a very nice bike ride with with my father.
Oh, did you text the appropriate number?
No, I just filled out the form. I'm old school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Thankfully, we didn't get pulled over by any Tsiba.
Well, did you maintain your 1.5 meter minimum distance?
Oh, yeah, it was greater.
Okay, that's good.
So, yeah, essentially, that was the highlight of the day. I've been cramming Harry Potter episodes in my days right now. Uh,
Episodes? What are you talking about?
Harry Potter movies.
Oh, okay. Have you read the books, or are you one of those plebs that just go straight to the movies?
No, I'm a pleb.
Honestly, I'd say with Harry Potter, it's the only franchise with no excuse not to read the books. The books are just so good, especially if you're
Mm.
a kid. I mean, I know adults that still like get off on reading Harry Potter, but honestly, if you're a kid, that stuff really immerses you into a whole different world.
Oh, yeah, I bet. I
Okay.
guess I didn't get to do that. I read other books.
Yeah, you're too late now.
Yeah. And I already have an idea in my mind from the movies. But
Yeah.
anyhow, I enjoy them as well. I find it really epic.
Yeah, they are epic movies. To be fair, they are, especially towards the end, they do
Yeah.
sort of accept the whole like epic, huge budget, extreme effects sort of vibe that needs to be there in order to build, you know,
Oh,
a
yeah,
story and a universe that works with the books because the books are epic, dude.
I bet.
Okay, so I'm glad you enjoyed the masterpieces. Which movies did you watch? Which number?
Uh, 2 and 3. So it's
Yeah.
uh, the secret chambers and the
Oh my
prison
god, it's the
pass.
Chamber of Secrets, you pleb.
Oh, fuck off, please. And how was your day?
It was fine. I woke up at 5:30 because my burglar alarm started ringing.
Oh, was there a burglar or was it your dog?
No, but I will say I kind of felt like Biggie in that song Warning, where he grabs his Beretta and he's ready to cause some, flower bringing.
Did you grab your stick by the
No, my lacrosse stick remained in its
in its place?
position and its place at the corner of my room. But I am now holding a baseball in my hands.
A
Uh,
baseball bat or a baseball?
no, a baseball. I got it wrong store.
Oh, nice.
Uh, but I think this could do some damage. Like if you throw it hard enough, definitely could fuck someone up.
Yeah, I think that this
Like
applies
like
to
you at
anything.
the British club.
Oh, you can't harm me there.
Well,
I've been through some pretty rough nights. I think I've I've defeated
Yeah,
death in that.
cold nights.
No, that's not what I'm referring to.
Well, I don't know what you're referring to, and honestly, I'm not in any hurry to find out because you're the kind of person that would make like someone spilling a drink on you sound like a tough night.
No, 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 that's not tough.
What's tough?
Being 100% sure that you're gonna die is kind of rough.
Well, if you're 100% sure, then how are you still alive? Anyway,
Well,
anyway, that
maybe it was my judgment at that time was not pitch perfect.
well, you should promise our audience you'll share the story once we get back from our 3 day break.
We'll see, we'll see. If we get how many likes?
Maybe like 10?
10? All right.
10 likes on
if,
this video.
if people are watching this still.
Yeah, honestly, probably not, but
Yeah, this episode's been a clusterfuck.
yeah, but it's been like fun because it's had like a bunch of toxic masculinity, a bunch of random facts about language, and also it's had us, and we always make our episodes. Um, we always add a special touch to them, like
Oh
my
yeah.
uncle did. On that note,
Stop. Stop.
on that note,
Uh,
um, we think if there's any episode worth of getting up subscribe off your account, it's this one, honestly.
oh yeah, it is.
I mean, if you like this kind of content, first of all, wow.
Well,
Second of all, yeah, we do this all the time. Most of the time, it's more mild, but it's still quite similar.
yeah, it's more natural.
So, on that note, I think we're done here for today.
Yeah,
Honestly, we both need some time to calm down after this one.
yeah.
So, thank you for tuning in and hope to see you next time. Bye bye.
Good night.